I'll give you 5 minutes more, so you'll have until 7:25.
¿Puede repetir, profe, porfa?
Yeah, I'll give you 5 minutes more, so you have until 7:25 for you who haven't completed the questions. Okay, time's up. So results are in. None of you got the question right, and let me explain you why. So these are the results. Option B was the most popular one, but the answer C was the correct one. And let me explain you why right now. So let me share a whiteboard. We only need one formula and we only need one calculation to answer this question. So first of all, I'm going to start analyzing the other ones that are not. Well, in this case, I don't know which one is the first one, but I can just discard some of them by just looking at the graphs. So let me also share Word. Okay. So with this data, you have to select which of these statements is the one that is true. So the rate of increase in shrimp price from May to October is the same as the rate of decrease in profit margin in these months. By just looking at exhibit 1, we can see that both graphs doesn't have the same slope. If they have the same slope, that means the rate of increase is the same as the rate of decrease. So they should look like how can I think I can write here. They should look like this if they were to have the same rate. So something like this and like this, always the same. And that's not true. So we can discard the first one. So option B, Freddy's made 5% less profit in August than it did in May. So here it says profit, that's not the same as profit margin, remember. So the graphs we see here, it's talking about profit margin. And yeah, if we are talking about profit margin from May to August, it decreased 5%, but it's not the same as profit, okay? So that's discarded as well. And this one, restaurant prices for shrimp dishes were 10% higher in October than it did in May. So if we look at the shrimp price in October and May, they increased 10%. However, we don't have enough information. We don't know if Freddy is going to charge its customer with this 10%, which I think that's not going to happen. Freddy is going to be the one charging itself for this price increase, not their customers. So I don't have enough information to know if what's the decision they're going to make. However, option C, it might seem, it's kind of tricky because you see here the profit margin decreasing. However, you have to look also at the revenue in table 1. Let me tell you how. So I told you we only need one equation and one calculation to know that option C is the correct one. So profit margin, remember this formula is net income or net profit, it's the same, divided by revenue. So the simplest way to read the profit margin, remember, is the percentage that we get, out of the total revenue we have, the profit margin is the percentage that is turning into profit or into gains. So if I have a profit margin of 50% and I'm selling shoes at, I don't know, $20, then my profit per shoe or per pair of shoes is $10, right? 50%. So here, if I want to calculate the net profit, because here they are talking about the profit, I just need to do this. I don't know the word in English, despejar. So what I'm just going to move it here. So net profit equals profit margin multiplied by revenue, right? Solo despejé net profit de la fórmula de arriba. So And this makes sense, right? If I want to calculate the profit, in this case, from the one pair of shoes that I'm receiving on turning revenue into, I just multiply $10, that is one pair of shoes, and I multiply it by my profit margin, 50%. Therefore, I get the net profit, which is $10. It's the same here. So we have the information here. Let's calculate the profit for May. So we have a profit margin of 100% times 1,223. It's just the same, right? It's just like multiplying it by 1, the unity. However, for August, we have 25 profit margin. So we'll multiply 1,402 times 0.95 to obtain the profit from the formula we just got. And the answer is 1,331, which is greater than 1,223. So if I go to my options, Freddy's made a greater profit in August than it did in May. That's true. We just calculated it by multiplying the revenue times the profit margin. Any questions?
Can you go back to the notes that you made?
You mean this or? Yes. So yeah, this formula that we already learned, profit margin is equal to net profit and revenue, and they asked for the profit. So I should look for the word despejar. But yeah, we just despejamos esta fórmula and we got the net profit margin times revenue. This question was kind of tricky because you might think at first sight that by seeing a less profit margin, you will have less profit, but that's not necessary. More questions? Okay, so I don't know, my advice for this kind of question, actually, I just took this question out of the McKinsey test. I don't know which one of them. They have a lot of that are for you to practice. But these kind of questions are the ones that you are going to be finding if you decide to one day apply to one consultancy company. If you want to be a business consultant, these kind of questions, this kind of thinking, it's kind of the same as the things they are going to ask you when you're applying to them. So what I suggest to you, pay attention to detail. So today, I want to talk about the extra case. That's our agenda. The first 30 minutes from now on, before the presentations, we're going to talk about the extra case. I'm going to make a quick summary on the things you need to do to get the subcompetency. I'm going to focus on the first subcompetency because the vast majority of you didn't get it right. And I don't want you to get this wrong for a second time. So let me share with you what's due for the extra case. No, this is another class. If you go to models at the bottom of this extensive list, you will have, or you will encounter the extra case evidence. So you have to choose between these two cases, and I'm going to just give you a brief introduction to each of them. Pull the plug on a project with an uncertain future. It talks about a real estate company. I think they are based in Moscow or somewhere near Europe, Asia, and they have had a great impact on their sales and on their projects, actually, because they were just starting to build this complex before the COVID-19 came. And they received a really good offer to buy this company. So they are deciding if, given the circumstances, it is better for them to sell the company or not. That's the question you have to answer in this case. The second case, will advanced new technology help or hurt morale? I think the name of the bank company is called Binar. So what they are debating on is, should we implement this new technology based on our approach to customer service is one-on-one, and right now we can give credit to people with an AI technology without any personal contact, which is basically our competitive advantage. So they have to think, should we roll out this new technology, this new artificial intelligence technology, or should we not? So you have to deliver an argumentative essay if you are applying to all of the different subcompetencies, but the oral language from 600 words to 1,200 words in APA style. And if you are applying to the oral language subcompetency, there's no need to do this written document. You have to deliver a presentation, a video. Remember, 10 slides in maximum 10-minute presentation. So I'm going to focus on a strategic perspective, and I'm going to show you what am I going to evaluate, the same things that I evaluated in the first term. You have to use one quantitative scenario technique, which is basically the cross-impact matrix method. Scenarios with qualitative techniques, it's Peter Schwartz scenarios, and builds a vision based on these different tools I just mentioned. So let's review all of them. And I'm going to start with a structural analysis. So for a structural analysis, remember what we have to do, or what the outcome of the structural analysis is to define the strategic variables. So we have a lot of variables that we can identify through the Marc-Giger tree method, or we can do the SWOT analysis as well. From all these different variables that we have for our system, in this case, for the business case we want to solve, we have to define the ones that are strategic. That means the ones that have great influence on other variables, or that are greatly influenced by other variables. That's why they are key to our systems, because they interact with a lot of variables. So for this, we use the MICMAC. You have to create an account, which is different from the Probe Expert, and I'm going to create one session. So title, description. Theme name, you can categorize your variables. So you can say, if you use the SWOT analysis, you can say opportunities, threats, strengths, weaknesses, or if you use I don't know, the 5-quarter external forces analysis, you could write social, economical, technological, competitive. If you want to use the five forces of Porter, that's useful too. I'm just going to write here, for the example, theme 1. If you want to add another themes, you can do so here. If you don't want to, you just put here close. Since I'm just using one categorization, I'm just going to write all my different variables belonging to this theme I just defined. So we go here in example, variables, and you add the variables you want to work with. I suggest for you to use around from 5 to 6 variables, because once we perform this structural analysis, you will end with 3 or 4 variables. And for the Peter Schwartz analysis, you need 2 of them or 3 of them. For the quantitative analysis as well, you need around 3 to 4. So I suggest for you to have at least 5 to 6 variables here. I'm just going to write here 2 variables or 4 for this example. Oh, so theme 1. So theme 1, variable 3. I think I grabbed all of them. Let me see. I just got one. I made a mistake here. When you put save, if you want to add another one, you have to click here, add again. So second variable. and my third variable. Okay, I got all of them. We go to calculation parameters. So here, remember the number of iterations. I suggest for you to use the recommended one. If you don't remember what's going on inside the computer, is that we want to multiply our system by itself to unstabilize it and then find a stability. So the computer has to perform several iterations to reach a stability, which if you remember, we can see a stability. I will show you next that it has to reach 100%, no more, no less. It can be around a 20% margin, that's fine, but try for it to be in 100%. In this case, the computer says you need to have 4 iterations, so I use a recommended number of iterations. The next thing here is to fill the matrix of direct influences. So you have to think here if this variable, let's say variable 1, has a low, medium, or a strong influence over variable 2, 3, and 4. Remember, the identity, that means this line, this diagonal, has to be 0 because you cannot define what's the influence of variable 4 over itself. Here we have 3 different levels of potentiality. However, I just show you one. Remember, if we input to this computer a lot of degrees of uncertainty, which are potentials. Potential means we don't know the influence, but we guess or we think that there's some kind of influence. It doesn't mean the potential influence is stronger than the strong influence. No, potential means I don't know if there's any influence, but I guess there might be some. So if you don't know the level of how potential that variable is influencing another variable, just use P1. I suggest for you to use just P1, 1 degree of uncertainty. So you are going to start filling. My variable 1 has a strong, medium, low, or potential, or no influence even over variable 4. You have to analyze it depending on your variables. So I'm just going to use random numbers here. 0, P1, 3, 2, 1, 0 here, another P1 here, 3, 3, 2. 0, 0, 0 on the identity, and we are good to go. So what we want to find, remember, is the stability of our matrix. This matrix we just defined. The matrix defines the different interactions in our system. Okay, so this is the thing I told you to reach 100% in both influence and dependency. If I won't reach it here, actually. If you see here, here's moving from 150% to 66%. And if I continue adding more iterations, I will find the same instability, which needs to reach 100%. What to do in these cases? I told you if you have a 20% margin, that's fine. However, that's more than 20%, go here to your matrix of direct influences. And since I have a lot of uncertainty here, P1, I have 0 here, and I have really low influences. That's why I won't reach stability. So if this happens to you, try to think in other variables that are more influential or dependent on other variables. In this case, I just did random. So for stability, I won't focus on reaching 100%, but you have to focus on it. So once we click on stability for matrix, we are good to go to our results. We have several results. However, the one we are using is a matrix of potential indirect influences, because we can use this one. The potential of direct influences. But if you remember, the difference between direct and indirect is that indirect, we can clearly see what's the influence from one variable to another. But for indirect, it is hard to see what's the influence over one variable if we have several variables in between, like a chain. In this case, it is better for us to see these influences that we cannot easily see. You go to matrix view, and here are our results. So we have 4 different quadrants. The strategic variables, that means the most important variables because they influence over other variables or are dependent on other variables, are in this conflict quadrant. So my variable 2 and variable 1 are my strategic variables, and also in the power zone, which are the variables that have a great influence over other variables. So we have 3 different strategic variables. This is our raw material to work on the Peters-Schwarz and also on the cross-impact matrix method, okay? So any questions on structural analysis? I'm going kind of quick, but questions?
No, but teacher, can you explain what is the strategic foresight? Well, the competency for the strategic foresight based on?
Yes, it's here. So you have to do one quantitative analysis, which is the cross-impact matrix method, and one qualitative analysis, which is the Peters-Schwarz. But before you do this, you have to look for your strategic variables, okay?
And in the solution, it's okay if we just like give a solution based on the competency that we need to have, or we need to, yes?
Yeah, that's fine, yes. I'm just explaining this first competency, subcompetency, because that's the one that the vast majority didn't get. That's why I'm focusing on this one. Okay, so let's go to Peters-Schwarz. That's the qualitative analysis, a scenario analysis. So I'm just going to tell you because we don't have enough time. So for Peters-Schwarz, you have to take these variables and you have to think on one motor variable. That means a bigger variable. Let's say these variables are micro and we have to think macro. So for instance, in the work case, when we perform this, some micro variables, in this case, these variables that we just found, might be customer service, if that's important for my company success, customer service, sustainable fishing, I don't know, sustainable dishes. Also location could be one important variable. But when we think to macro variables that are just above these variables, we could think in technology. So fishing technology might have itself the sustainable fishing, I don't know, other net technology. I mean, it involves a lot of variables. Other motor variable or macro variable could be also the government. For instance, the government takes a lot of decisions that might influence a lot of variables. It might influence my customers. It might influence my type of fishing. It might also influence on my locations. So you have to think for the Peters-Schwarz axis in 2 different motor variables. Again, with these strategic variables, think of at least 2 variables that move these variables, that have that cover a lot of these variables. So I might choose for my Peters-Schwarz analysis, as I already told you, fishing technology, and I don't know, government regulations, for instance. So I have 4 quadrants. Let's think of in this image, I might have in this axis. So here I have a lot of technology, or technology is increasing a lot. In here I have a decrease in technology. And here I have government is really empowering the fishing, not the fishing, but the Asian cuisine industry or restaurants. And the government is not really giving support to their Asian restaurant industry. So I have to think of 4 different scenarios. And you remember, this is qualitative analysis. So here you have to write a narrative with 3 components. Your narrative has to be consistent within itself. The narrative has to appeal these two different axes. And last, the narrative has to appeal as well the problem you're trying to solve or the objective you're trying to achieve. So, for instance, for this quadrant, I might say in this scenario, Colombia has really developed its economy. The GDP has increased a lot because the government is allowing people to be richer because, I don't know, they implemented a new law that it's moving the whole economy of Colombia. I'm just appealing to this axis, and I'm going to continue narrating, appealing to this other axis. Also, in this scenario, I put a name to that scenario if you want to. I mean, that's precise too as well. You can talk about, in this scenario, a lot of different restaurants are using sustainable fishing. Since technology has gotten cheaper, a lot of different small restaurants can now implement this kind of fishing instead of importing fish from the outside, from foreign countries. I'm appealing as well to this axis. I'm being consistent. And I need still to appeal to our problem, which is how are we going to expand in Colombia. So you can end your narrative by saying, in this scenario, since economy is moving really, really well, we have an increase in richness in the whole country. This has allowed the Asian restaurants in general to have better circumstances to expand. So I'm appealing to our problem. However, in these Peter Schwartz scenarios, I'm not talking about WOC, because that's the implications these different scenarios have, and that has to be explained within your essay. So Peter Schwartz scenarios are the general scenarios, okay? Questions on this? Okay, so let's talk about our last tool, which is the cross-impact matrix method. So this is quantitative. We are going to end up with a number that we have to read to understand what's the most probable scenario to occur. For this, we're going to use the Prof Expert. You have to create a different account from the Micmac platform. So I'm going to create a new one. This is more intuitive, I think. So I'm going to create example one. Suivant, hypothesis. So remember, the structure analysis is the basis for both Peter Schwartz and also the cross-impact matrix method. So hypothesis is what we call the events. So events have three different parts: time horizon, hypothesis of the future, and what's the current situation. So for instance, how probable it is that by 2030, that's the first part, I don't know, the number of Asian restaurants in Colombia increase by, I don't know, 50%. That's my hypothesis. Given now, that's the third part, we have, and I'm going to make up this number. Given now Colombia has, I don't know, 37 Asian restaurants. And you do this for each strategic variable you have. That's why I told you we begin with 5 to 6 and we end up with 3 to 4. These are the 3 to 4. So I'm going to write here hypothesis 2. hypothesis T, 3, sorry. And then just, I'm going to write event here. But remember, hypothesis and event are the same. So Yvonne, and you have to select this. Responder por mí mismo el cuestionario. So remember, we have two different types of conditionals. Of probability, sorry, the simple probability, which is how probable is for the hypothesis 1 to occur or happen. And we have the conditional probability. It's how probable for hypothesis 2 is to happen given that hypothesis 2 happened, or the conditional negative probability. How probable is for hypothesis 2 not to happen given that hypothesis 2 happened. So this is the simple one. I'm just going to do it random. And then we have the conditional. Here we have conditional positive or positive conditional and negative conditional at the same time. In this left part, we have the positive conditional, and on the right side, we have the negative conditional. So this is how you read this. How probable is for, in this case, we are talking about event 2, given that hypothesis 1 happened. So I'm going to do it random. You have to analyze it. How probable is for event 3 to happen given that hypothesis 1 happened? So I'm going to do it random again. And in this case, how probable is for event 2 not to happen given that hypothesis or event 1 happened? Again, and you go here for each of the hypotheses you defined. You see, this is like really intuitive. Once we have this, we are ready to go. So we already have the results. Go here in calcul.net, and here you have the different probabilities of your different S scenarios. In this case, S scenarios are comprised by the events you defined. So the most probable one is, remember this is binary, so it's 0, 0, 1. Event 1 doesn't occur, event 2 doesn't occur, event 3 occurs. In this case, the same as Peter-Schwartz, events or hypotheses have to be general. Think of this way. If I put the hypothesis based on walk, it's like, I don't know, for the 2030, I'm expecting for walk to double its locations. And then you got the outcome of this analysis. And yes, you got that indeed, it is probable for walk to duplicate its locations. So with this information, you are going to give an advice and a strategic advice to walk. So what's the logic answer to this? You should expand, but this doesn't make sense. You're basing your strategy on something that doesn't make sense because you are talking specifically to walk. So events and hypotheses have to be general. So let's think, if by 2030, what did I wrote? I don't know, the government's subsidies for restaurants increase at 30%. So why would you suggest with this information, given that this event will happen in the most probable scenario, for walk to expand? That makes sense because you are saying that at that time, the government will have a lot of subsidies for restaurants. That's different from basing your strategy on walk duplicating the locations. That doesn't make sense. So again, Peter-Schwartz and cross-impact matrix, Peter-Schwartz narratives and cross-impact matrix methods, events, or hypotheses have to be general. Otherwise, this doesn't make sense, okay? So again, Peter-Schwartz narratives and the events or hypotheses of the cross-impact matrix method have to be general. So questions? This was kind of a quick summary. Okay, so I have in OneNote a little manual for the Micmac. I don't have it for ProbExpo, but I can do so if you want to have everything that I just explained. You can find the micmac on OneNote in our class. I will post as soon as I have the other one, the Prov Expert, for you to use. So, okay, today we're not going to have a break because we only have 1 hour left, and we have 4 presentations today. So I will ask Jimena Macias, if you are there, can you take the time? And just a quick parenthesis. Have you heard about Toastmasters? Have we talked about Toastmasters before? No? Okay, so Toastmasters is an organization, a global organization that is advocated to public speaking. I have been there for around 10 years, and their methodology really works. So today we're going to kind of have a, let's say, your Toastmasters session. So I will ask a few people to help me with the evaluation. So Jimena Macias will help me with the time evaluation. And I also need a words evaluator. Words are the same as muletillas, which are este in Spanish. So I just want to have a count on those words you are using. So I will ask, or do we have any volunteer before I say someone? Okay, Wendy. So you have to write down the different words, which I already told you are like este, y, or even some pauses that are not fundamented, that doesn't have any objective within your speech. I just want you to count them down. So yeah, I can have that information for my evaluation. So let me share with you the agenda for today on presentations. So we are beginning with Oscar. The second is going to be Alfonso, then Camila, and last but not least, Alejandro. I have a question here. Okay, so I'll read this later. So Oscar, so whenever you are ready. Remember, Jimena, you are taking the time. You are there, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Wendy, you are there as well? For the N words. Wendy? Okay, so Romina, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, so you are going to be the onwards counter. So just let me know how many onwards each of the presenters are using. So Jimena, let us know in the chat when 8 minutes has or have already passed, 9 minutes and 10 minutes. So 8 minutes, 9 minutes, and 10 minutes. So whenever you're ready, Oscar.
Yes. Well, hi, my name is Oscar, and today I'm going to show you my executive report year 9. First of all, we have the general and the specific objectives. Obviously, my main objective is to reach the first place in the simulation and win. But in order for me to get that place, I should maximize, first of all, my bank balance, my fleet value, and do not overfish. That is very important. The income statement and the net profit margin for the coast and the deep sea are very important to me because I kind of love to do this type of stuff because it is actually the way business, or in this case, a simulation, talks to me and tell me if it's wrong or it's good, the situation right now. We can see the profit that is made up of the total income and the total expenses, but the really important thing right now is the final bank balance, that if it's negative or it's still the same is not a good situation for the simulation. But in the other hand, we have the net profit margin for the coast and the deep sea. We actually can see that it is almost the same, with a 54% in the coast and a 53% in the deep sea. So this is actually going to help me a lot in the future to develop a strategy to my solution in this case. Then we have the revenue and the net income growth rate for each year. We can see I'm not proud of it, but we can see a couple zeros right there, and that is the results of bad decisions in the simulation. But we can see actually that in the year 5 and 6, in the growth rate in the net income, it's actually very good. Maybe not in the revenue, but we can see that the decisions taken since that year are very good. But the highlight right here and right now is the growth ratio of the net income that we can see that is about 673%. That actually is very good because we have been taking better decisions since the year 6. Then the revenue and the net income forecast. As I told you, every point we can see there, it's a result of our decisions and our operations in the simulation. If we keep this style of playing this simulation, all the things are going up, as we can see in these graphics, the revenue and the net income. The balance scorecard for current. Actually, this helped me a lot to understand the situation because the KPIs established in every sense of the simulation, like, for example, the finance ones that are the value of the ships, we can see that I have a 92.11% that I know that I am almost reaching my goal, but not enough. The same is in all the other KPIs that help me to understand my situation and how I'm keep going to get my score. Then the strategic map and the current year and useful information in graphics. Actually, the strategic map, I see it like a summary of the scorecard because it helps me to understand in a better way how is, for example, the maximizing fleet value, that we can see that there is a 59.49%. It is good, but not enough. But actually, what parts should be improved in this? Well, the value of the ships, it's good. The ship market value, it's also good, but the ship orders in the market are not very good. So actually, that is the thing that should be improved. And then in the useful information in graphics, I specifically choose these ones because it helped me to understand in which position should I put my ships, because actually it's very important because the harvest is one of the things that in my case are very important. We're going to see why in the next slide. My insights. The first insight is defining the main objective and sub-objective allows me to put into perspective the next decisions and define the methodology that should be followed to achieve my goals. And also, I noticed that the net profit margin of the deep sea and coast are almost the same. So like I told you, this is going to be very useful to position the ships in an strategic way to harvest more fish. And the extra income I had is going to be very helpful to place the ships in the deep sea if it's convenient and not be afraid of paying a bigger operating cost. And the round's decision. For this round, I decided to sell one boat. This action helped me to reduce the impact of the cost, and it worked because I reduced the impact by almost 30%. For the next round, I will continue having 4 ships, and I am going to position them strategically, not caring about the cost that it could be higher because I already sell that boat. Then the risk of that decision. Actually, in my case, I only have 4 ships. So that is kind of dangerous because, like we can see, the overfishing and due to only have 2 boats in the coast and 2 boats in the deep sea that may not harvest enough fish to achieve my goal of maximizing my bank balance. That is all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Oscar. It was really good. I just have one question. If we have the profit margin almost the same in both coast and deep sea, what's the criteria to decide where to allocate your ships? Because it doesn't matter if you allocate them in the coast or the deep sea, you will have the same profit margin. So what's the criteria for you to decide where to allocate your ships?
You send us some useful information in graphics, and I saw that the fish stock that we can see will help me to understand in where to position the ships, because, well, yes, it's the same margin, but the amount of fishes that I can get in the coast and the deep are kind of different, because maybe all the persons are still in the deep and I can go to the coast and maybe I can have a little bit more fishes, because that is the most important thing I can do right now.
That's a good criteria, Oscar. So remember to put that criteria as well in whenever you're monitoring, because if that KPI, amount of boats or ships in coast or the deep sea, is helping you to take decisions, it's useful to see them here to know where to allocate your ships. Thank you. I will give you the feedback, specific feedback, especially on your strategy map and the balance scorecard. In a written form in Illumin, okay?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. So let's go with Alfonso Morales. So that's Team 20, Ocean 3.
Ahorita, profe, tiempo. So this is my executive report for the fish bank. We are Ocean 3. During our objectives, we decide that our main objective is to maximize our profit related in the year 9 related to year 8. During year 8, we did like $1,521, and we are aiming to do $2,000 during the year 9. Our income statement, we can see here our year 7 was really good, really, in terms of income, because we bought a new ship during that year. We had a little bit more of expenses because of that ship, but during the year 8, we really we did very good during our harvest, and the profit was really good as well. We almost duplicated. Our net profit margin for the year 8, we only have ships at the deep sea, so we did the equation that is net profit divided by revenue, and that is 54%. And as I said, we only have ships in that area. Our revenue and net income growth rate is for each year is like we have a 0 in our revenue growth rate during the year 5, but we didn't lose. We did well during our fishing, and we can see our net income growth rate almost it duplicated during the year 8, and it was pretty good because as I said, the year we bought the ship, it helped us a lot because we need more ships because of our location, only the deep sea, and during the year 9 we need to get more fishing and more location. The decision is to keep doing it in the deep sea because it helps us a lot, but our forecast for the year 9 and 10 is pretty optimistic because we want to duplicate our gains. As I said, we are aiming to 2000, but in our growth rate, we almost have 500 more for the year 9, and the year 10 is almost the same, but as I said, we are not losing anything, and the DeepC is working very good for us. The balance scorecard for the current year, our KPIs, we are reaching all our objectives, only the expenses. I'm not sure why we don't have, like, we are not reaching it, but when I was talking with my teammate, we agreed that it might be because the location is pretty full. The ocean trio, or the main position in that ocean is the deep sea. We are very full, and the ships are getting hard to catch. The previous year we did very well. Our KPIs were almost fully completed, and the expenses we did very good. As I said, we bought a new ship, so that helped us to start fishing more, and the expenses wasn't like a lot for us to cover it, and it will help us for the year 10 and the year 9, as we said. The strategic map for year 9, our income, as I said, is going up a little. Our finance expenses are going down. Our profit is almost the same for year 9 and 10. We did another strategic map for that, but is getting better for the related to the year 8. The fish bank is almost the objective we want, and is pretty better than the year 8. The useful information in the graphic is that our revenue is almost for harvest, but we are getting a little bit of money for interest. The profit per ship it went down on year 6, but it's getting up on year 7 and 8, and we hope it's continuing going up during year 9. The ship allocation, as I told you, is only the deep sea, but during year 1, 2, and 3, we had like 3-4 ships in harbor. We move it, and it's working for us. The expected catch per ship is going up as well. During year 6, we can see that our percentage went down, but it's going up. The ship market is pretty good for us because we have only 5 ships, but the price is getting up every single year, and we did 2 orders during year 6 and during year 7. Well, the insight for my executive report is that during the 7th year, the profit growth was negative 10%. That means that the company lost 10% because of their total expenses. This can be explained because, as we see, the acquisition of a new ship during that year might be related. During year 8, we had 88% growth for 2 reasons. The first one is that the company didn't lose any money, and we catch more fish in deep sea than expected. The third insight is that the foresight for year 9 and 10 is very optimistic based on the performance of the year 8 and the unbeatable position that we have at deep sea. The other insight is that the net profit margin for the coast is 0%. As I told you, we only have ships located in the deep sea. We don't have ships at the coast or the harbor. The other is that regarding the balance scorecard, we can determine that our new objective is to maximize our profit to 2,000. As I told you, our perspective is a little bit higher, and it did higher. So we are very happy for that. And the information within the graphic help us a lot. We can observe that our revenue has been increasing, our profit per ship too. Our ships allocation are in the best position we can ask for, and the expected cash is going up too. As I told you, the decision is for year 9. We agree that our company, we do not need more ships at the moment, and all ships will be located at deep sea. The risk of this decision is that the deep sea won't be a lot of fish, because as I told you, it's a little bit full of all the ships, but we hope that it worked for us as it has been working the previous years. That's all.
Thank you, Alfonso. I just have one question for you. So, I mean, you calculated the profit margin for the coast, which is 0 because you don't have any ships there. However, if you allocate at least 1 or 2, I can assure you your profit margin is going to be kind of the same, because Oscar just calculated for him, and it's basically the same. So what I want to understand is why your decision to keep all your boats in the deep sea, knowing right now that you can have basically the same profit margin if you allocate it in the coast. So why do you decide to allocate all of them in the deep sea?
Well, that was my idea, to allocate it all in the deep sea, because as I told you, during the first 3 years, we did allocate some of those ships in the, I believe it's the coast, but it didn't work as well for us, and we moved all. We had like 3 at the deep sea and 2 in the coast, and we moved it all to the deep sea, and it started working for us. The revenue went up, the profit went up. We might I think we might put 1 at the coast during year 10, I believe. That is Fernando's idea, but it's basically that when we move all the ships, it worked very, very well for us, and it gave us like the money to buy a new ship, and I think that's the reason.
Okay, Alfonso, I would suggest for you to at least put this year 1 ship in the coast, because you don't have any information right now. And if you allocate at least 1 ship in the coast, the next year, once we finish this round, you will have the opportunity to know what's your profit there with just allocating 1. So I would suggest for you to do that, to at least have information for, I don't know, the last year. You have information on the coast, and you might decide maybe to allocate all of them on the coast. Maybe the profit this year goes even higher than the deep sea. So I will suggest for you to at least put 1 ship in the coast to have information to decide better. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Alfonso. So let's go with our third speaker. So Camila Rojas, we are going to move to Ocean 2. That's interesting. So whenever you're ready.
Wait, just 1 second. I put the camera. Okay. So I will start. Good evening. My name is Camila Rojas, and today I'm going to present the executive report for year 9 of Ocean 2. Okay. For the year 9 in the company, we have set ourselves 3 main objectives. The first one has to do with the maximizing the bank balance. In this case, we have $18,000 for the year compared to the year 8, when we just had $17.02. The second objective is to do not overfish Ocean 2. And the last objective is to maximize the value of the fleet we currently have. As is evident in the income statement, the company's income has increased and decreased over the years. This is due to the change in the amount of income we have received in certain periods of time. In the last 4 years, as we can see in here, the company has a negative income due to the fact that in Ocean 2, where our company is located, there is a shortage of fish, which makes it difficult for us to catch some fish. In this case, we also can see that our expenses are significantly higher than the income that we are receiving in 1 year.